Welcome to my daily review. Today is Tuesday, what day is it? June 3rd. It must be June 3rd. That's what my phone says. Anyway, you're taking a look at a daily chart of the Nasdaq, which was up 156 points today or 0.81%. Close at 19,399. We'll call it 19,400. How about that? The high of the session today was over 19.4, and it did close down a little bit after Elon blew up well, he spoke out about the big beautiful bill. But anyway, yeah, 459, 19,459 was the high today, and we're kind of breaking out of this little consolidation period here that I've been talking about after the big run up. Remember, it runs in spurts, and then it takes a little digestion, a little time out, and it ran up, big spurt, and now it's starting to break out of this little digestion area as it heads towards 20,204. That's my story. I'm sticking to it. And it looks like, it's not a prediction, it's just my expectation. And, anything can change at any time. So take it with a grain of salt. Yeah, today is the third. All right. So the Nasdaq looks good. It's let's go to the weekly chart here. Up 1.5% already this week. So it's already been a good week. And let's have it continue. You can see this V-shaped, we're having this V-shaped recovery, and it kind of makes sense because it went sideways here after the election. It made a high there on December 16th, went sideways for a few weeks, and then sold off with the tariffs. The news of the new administration had a little different philosophy. So we have a 27% peak to trough correction. And now that some of the uncertainties around these new policies have cleared up a little bit, stands to reason that it would just get back to where it was before. So to me, that's kind of practical. And the economy's fine. Businesses, earnings are coming in, pretty strong, better than expected, actually. So yeah, so I just expect, the Nasdaq to take out the 20,204 eventually, not tomorrow, not next week, but eventually. All right. It is making, this series of these, higher lows. You can see the low here below this week, higher low, a higher high. Thank you very much. So we're just in a strong uptrend right now, and not every stock is going to be ripping every day. So I'm just going to go through some of the leaders. It's Tuesday, so a good day to take a little time out and look at our leaders. And instead of going through all the individual industry groups that I like to go through, I'm just going to go through some of the leading stocks. First of all, I have to go to the the Mag 7 stocks, point out that Zuckerberg, his stock closed at 666 this afternoon. I don't think it means anything or anything we didn't know already. Anyway, this has got a nice cup with handle pattern. Bounced off its five. I have this on the five today because I'm just looking at leading stocks today. And if leading stocks, they should find support at their five or bouncing off the five or above their five, pulling back to the five, finding support, and that's going to give us an opportunity. But in some cases they are, in some cases not. This is Zuckerberg's company at 666, and it just closed down 0.5% today, but it looks pretty good. That's why I wanted to point this out. Amazon and Meta both, kind of similar here. This cup with handle pattern. Amazon just flat as a pancake today. NVDA actually looking a lot better, looking like one of the better Mag 7 stocks, that's for sure. And you can see this five here bounced off the five, pulled back there on Friday down to 132.92, bounced a little bit on Monday, 1 2/3%, and then today up nearly 3%. So Nvidia is looking strong. Maybe it could take out the high of that earnings gap day there of 143.49. So all it did is, yeah, it gapped up, then it came back, closed that gap, pulled back to the five, and now it's trading higher. So Nvidia looks pretty good. Then Tesla, I did mention Elon. He was speaking out today, as he likes to do. Anyway, his stock is pretty darn strong. We had it on the ready list as it formed that little ledge pattern as the Nasdaq pulled back 2 weeks ago. And then it ran off. And then I took it off this week. It's still fine. This thing looks fine, but it's just the 5 is curling lower now because it hasn't had the power to continue its uptrend. On the leading stocks that I'm going to get to here in a minute, they look a little different. All right, I'm going to go to the EPS because earnings to me, and I know a lot of people say earnings don't matter, it's all on the chart, blah, blah, blah. If you want to have a sustained long-term uptrend like our friend Apple did for years and years and years, this is built on the backs of sales and earnings growth for years and years and years and years. No, Tim Cook, CEO. And so, yeah, it's earnings and sales which drive this. It's not the chart pattern. I know some people get confused, but yeah, if you want to have a long-term uptrend, you better have some sales and earnings growth. And I've got to get to Credo here. Had a nice little pop this morning. It was at 71.72 in pre-market. And I looked at it, as I was walking my dog this morning, and it was over $80. Said, whoa, man, big move for Credo. Let's take a look at the 5. Yeah, right at the open there, 630, 635, and then selling all day long. But still, a nice 15% move on the day with 450% above the average volume. So that's a nice move for the Credo longs there, and close near the low of the session, which you don't want to see. But you got to keep an open mind and see how it plays out in the next few weeks. All right, so that was very positive earnings report from last night. This morning, Signet reported another 12.5% move with volume above the 200. That's a nice gap up there, and that looks pretty good to me. You could see the short-term moving average now just ramping higher. These things are stacked, so Signet's looking a lot better. It sure does help to have a strong earnings report. See, or a surprise to the upside. It's not the report itself, it's how it's received. City Trends, retail apparel, shoes stock. You can see the group is out of favor, but this one was up 22% with massive volume here. And it closed 89% of the daily range. So a little hammer we got going on here with City Trends. You could see this cup with handle breakout. That is textbook stuff right there. Triple digit earnings growth. And you could see the asterisks there. That means it went from negative, a loss, to positive. So good for City Trends. Maybe they're turning things around there. OLLI, this is a retail discount variety store. Oh man, I thought they were doing better, but it sliced the 50. No bueno, OLLI. Okay, yeah, rallied up in the morning there and then sold off into the close. Look at that close. Ouch. All right. So there's some sellers out there in OLLI. And then DG. I figured DG would be doing a little better in this kind of, economy, and it I wouldn't say that, they knocked the ball out of the ballpark, but, better than expected, I guess. And like I say, it's all about the reaction and not the hard data. And this is a nice, bull wedge pattern. When I talk about a bull wedge, that's what I'm talking about here. I'm not talking about buying stocks ahead of their earnings report. That could be suicide, but this is just a pullback to its 5 ahead of earnings, and then it popped 16%. Nice little wedge pattern there on just anemic volume down here. But you can see it consolidated in that base here. Let's take a look at the weekly chart here. Yeah, consolidated in that stage 1 base for just 6 weeks. Nice pop. So DG, and then Dollar Tree is going to report tomorrow, I believe. I don't know. I have to look at my stuff here. Yeah, I think it's tomorrow. Anyway, I'm going to get to that. I'm going to get to that in a minute. All right, I'm going to go, like I said, to the leaders. I think that's all the earnings report. This morning we had news that Meta Platforms had help me out here. A contract with Constellation Energy sparked a rally for a little bit in Constellation. What happened to this thing? I don't own it. I didn't look at it. Man, it gapped up at the open, sold off all day. Could be because it's kind of the revenues are, a little longer term, or a couple years out. So it's not an immediate accretive to, their earnings and their sales revenue like right away, like this quarter or next quarter. So CEG, wow, sold off. It was just flat on the session. So a whole lot of news, a whole lot of hullabaloo, and a whole lot of nothing for CEG. GEV is the one that I like. It's one of our leading stocks, and it's what was it up? It hit up 500 today, I think. Got over 500 for a little bit and then got rejected like Matambo. I believe, yeah, 572. And then, yeah, right at the open there, and then got rejected. Sold off all day. I'm sure it'll be back knocking at that 500 door. You can see the five here just trending along with the five. The five today is 481. So it's pretty extended from that five, which it pulled back to last week on the downgrade. I think it was Thursday. I got downgraded and give you that one day. It's only been down one day and had to be downgraded for GEV to go down. All right, VST, another one that I like. I believe I put this one on my ready list. I was going to do it over the weekend, and then I thought I wanted to keep it limited, and I had a defensive name on there, WPM, the gold stock. But anyway, this thing popped off its five. Nice 5% gain. Kind of strange that Constellation would be flat and Vistra would be up 5% on that news, but that's the way it goes. And this is NRG. This is not, I say it's typically a pretty slow moving stock, and then it had this big breakout, but it's just forming this little, flat base here now. Flat bases are 5 weeks. It certainly hasn't been 5 weeks. It's only been a couple of weeks here. Yeah, this is 3 weeks, but still forming that little ledge pattern, not doing anything wrong. 0.5% off of its 52-week high, and it looks good to me. Just supported at that five there. You could see the five. It popped off the five. So this stock looks really good to me. Not doing anything wrong. It's not core weave. It's not going up 20% in a day, but it's showing well and it's holding up well. And yeah, the energy stocks. It's definitely one that I like. TLN is another one, Talon Energy. This one's consolidated in a base for quite some time. It was up nearly 3% today. It had a 3 weeks tight going into the week. Another one that I was thinking about putting on but didn't. Now I'm going like, why didn't you put it on, you dummy? But I still could. You could see the RS line is heading due north. It's got the blue dot here. It popped off the five. It's stacked. You can see the 5 to 21 rallied through the 50, and it's just trending nicely. That one looks like a thing of beauty. What else do we have in this group? Oh, the data center play, power play, which I'm going to get to in a minute. This one looks pretty good too. VRT, you can see the 21 now starting to trend through the 200. So that is looking enticing as well. Kind of like that pattern there. OKLO, I put this one on. They had a secondary offering of 1 billion, which is a lot. When you're looking at a 7 billion, 6.9 billion market cap, and they did a 1 billion secondary offering. You can see this thing's got this cup. Maybe it needs more time for a handle, but it was pulled back to its five 3 days in a row and just looked like it was going to pop this morning and then close below the five here. So that's one to watch. It needs to bounce there and get back above that level. But like I said, that was a pretty massive secondary offering. Who else do we have in this group here? Oh, SMR is another one, nuclear energy. And this one closed at its five as well. Wow, just a tick below the five. So the energy stocks were good, and then they were not. This is LEU up 5.5%. So wow, talk about hit and miss. Centrus Energy, this one rallied up to 139 and closed at 131. So kind of the old okey doke this morning on the energy plays. All right, that's enough of that group. I want to get to the building, power construction group, power, PWR, Quanta Services is a ticker up 3% today. I did put this one on along with OKLO NVST. This is a little different type of a play, but man, that thing looks pretty nice here, breaking out of this cup with handle pattern. You got the RS line heading due north with the blue dot. So this one looks pretty darn good, bouncing off its five. Another one that I like in this group is Sterling. It's got this little ledge again, just forming this little ledge and now starting to pop up 2.44% today. What else do we have in this group? Oh yeah, AGX had it on the ready list 2 weeks ago or last week. I don't know, but I took it off this week and it's getting extended, but still 4% gain today for AGX. So that one looks pretty darn good. You can see that 191 is the standard. and it's getting pretty extended from that buy point, and it's 3.5% above its five, so needs to pull back a little bit. All right, I'm going to get to our leaders. I talk about, when you want to gauge the market and the health of the market, you don't only have to look at the index because the index is skewed by those Mag 7 stocks. I look at the leading stocks. They're posted every morning at mcstockcharts.com. Now I just post them at the top of the page because these are super important stocks. And this is CoreWeave. Up, look at that hammer candle close 98% of the daily range, and then up after hours here today, 154. And I know there's a lot of people who hate this stock. There's a lot of people say it's overvalued. It's and you know what? I've seen this before, and I could just tell you that things repeat in the market, and so you have to pay attention to, precedent analysis. And so I'm not saying that this is the exact same thing, but eBay, when it became public here in 1999, had a pretty decent, made a lot of folks wealthy, I should say. And I'll go back just a little bit just to show you how this thing curled at the bottom here. Yeah, right here, and just kind of started right here, this little curl pattern, and not a football curl pattern, but it just kind of curls an IPO base and it rips up, kind of goes sideways. And before people got excited about it, it's now 78, pulls back to moving average, rips up to 107, flattens out for a while. You think, oh, that's the top, right? It's going to sell off. Nope, whoop, 177, whoop, went up to like 210. So yeah, I mean, CoreWeave has got a long way to go. What was it 217 there? And it was back at $9, $10 to 217. So eBay made a lot of folks wealthy. I remember those days well. And now, if you just look at that chart right there and you take a look at CoreWeave here as we go to what today's date, what did I say it was? June 3rd, right? Yeah, don't screw up the days. When you're retired, it changes your perspective a little bit. But yeah, there's your little curl pattern, right? Right at the beginning of the move, it had the little curl pattern, then, ramped higher. And there's a lot of non-believers. And now it pulled back, what, one time to the five, ramped up, pulled back again to the five, ramped up. It'll pull back to that five, but if you wait for the five, I just go back a couple of days here. On Friday, the five was at 108. Yesterday it was at what, at 112, and today it's at 125. So it went up like $13 in a day. So tomorrow's going to be like what, 138, 140. And at this rate, the next time it pulls back to the five, it'll be 150 bucks. So don't be afraid of this. I expect this thing to probably double from here, 300. Yeah, that would not surprise me at all. That's what I expect, actually. And there's going to be pullbacks along the way. There's going to be people getting off the train. A lot of non-believers out there in this one. That's what I like about it. It's going to pull back at some point, catch up, allow the five to catch up, and then rip higher. Just like we saw with eBay, when it moved, what did I say, $10 to 217. Nobody wanted this stock, when it was at 50 bucks not long ago. It was at 30 bucks, during the and then on Liberation Day, it's been ripping ever since, right? And now, I wouldn't say everybody wants it because there's a lot of haters out there. They hate this stock. And that's going to fuel this thing to higher prices, I think. Obviously it's got, fantastic monster sales growth. And I believe this is going to be a model book IPO stock. And we look back at 2025, you're going to say, gosh, why didn't I buy CoreWeave? What was wrong with me? Because there's so many haters out there saying it's overvalued, it's not worth 150 bucks. And you're look at it, 300, 350 bucks, and you're saying, maybe I should have bought it at 150. That's my expectation. Expectations can be broken. This thing could crash and burn, but it has not shown that ability to do that. Every time it pulls back, it's supported. So, until that trend continues, ride that trend till it bends at the end. Anyway, that's my CoreWeave and eBay story, and I believe there's a correlation there. Just, I don't know, it just hit me. Just because, a lot of my friends, we made good money in eBay back in the day, and I think this is very similar to me. It just feels that way. All right. Hood, Robinhood. This is one that, people are expecting to go into the S&P 500 on Friday afternoon. I think they're going to be disappointed. The Coinbase just went in, and Williams Sonoma and EXE recently. These were the recent ads, and Coinbase. We'll take a look at Coinbase, and Williams Sonoma went in, and then they got a gap up and then pulled back. So there's no reason to buy a stock just because it's going into an index, but that's what's happening. A lot of excitement. And also Bitcoin's been rallying too. So Robinhood probably going higher this week. It's already up quite a bit this week, 8.5%. And I just got to point out the monthly because to me, this is kind of what it's all about there. 85, that's when it really gets going here. I would expect when it gets to 85 that it has some resistance and, kind of pulls back and does a little sideways action before marching, to 100 and beyond. But yeah, I really like Robinhood. I like the chart and making new highs, 52-week highs. So what's not to like? App 11, another one. This is one that I think will get into the S&P 500. Once again, not a reason to buy the stock, but if it's announced Friday afternoon after the markets close that App 11's going in, it's going to rally big time. And, if you got, I don't know, I think 450's in the card, 10% move, 440, 450. It's definitely cracked, this 400 level a couple times recently. And, like Tesla was doing a while back. This reminded me of Tesla when it was trying to crack 300. Was it here? 291 came back, hit it a couple times, then went through 300. Yeah, it took a couple cracks at it there and finally got through. Yeah, and May 9th, I guess it was. So yeah. Anyway, that's kind of my story with App 11. I think it's going higher. Leading stock, this is why it's, on our leading stock list. It's above the moving averages, trending higher. If it gets into the S&P, there's just be a bunch of people, buying the stock and, of course, going in. It's needs to be bought. So yeah, App 11, probably some momentum behind that name. AEM, Agnico Eagle is another one that's on our a leading stock. Let's just had an inside day today. No harm, no foul here. Just allowing the moving averages to catch up. That one's still going to be on our leading relative strength list. Same with Anglo Gold, Ashanti. Those are the two gold stocks that are on there. Broadcom reports this week. This is a leading stock, obviously. This thing's set up nicely to move higher. I'm not saying that it will, but man, the chart looks awfully good. And maybe they'll have a little better reaction than NVIDIA did last week because NVIDIA kind of crapped out after its gap higher. But we'll have to wait and see until they report. Another leading stock is Dutch Bros. I listened to their little webinar today with they're presenting at three different conferences today, talking about their growth and a couple of things that I listened to that I thought was interesting. One that, they're not really bothered by the hike in coffee prices because they have their contract locked in for this year. Now, next year might be a different story, if coffee continues to rise, but that is a commodity that, weighs on their gross margins. And also, she said that 2% of their sales already are food items, and they only have a few food items. That kind of surprised me. And I asked the people at Dutch Bros about are people eating there, and they're saying, yeah, a lot of people are ordering. They have these bacon sliders, bacon egg sliders, and they're pretty good. My wife loves them. Uh, and yeah, so 2% of their sales, man, that really shocked me. That's a lot because they just brought it out. It's not even at, I don't even know the percentage of stores they have food at, but I know it's not all of them. So for it to be 2% of their sales already, that tells me that's going to be a big success there for Dutch Bros. And that's going to add to their same store sales because this is a new item. And also she mentioned their app. So a lot of people are adding, and this is kind of a tell when CEOs say stuff like this, more and more people are ordering through their app. So it makes their lines go faster because you order before you go, and then you just come pick it up. You don't have to wait in line and order from the nice people who are out there waiting on you in the hot sun in southern Arizona. Um, So in Texas too, and in the South. Uh, so yeah, those are, some things that, just caught my ear when I was listening to her talk. Um, so more people are downloading the app, more people buying their food items. That's new. That's all new stuff. And then they've capped their coffee prices, so they're not hit by commodity, if they raise. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. Anyway, all right, I'm going to move on. Bros is going to stay on our leading stock list because it's trading right there at its 5 EMA. I expect to bounce off that 5 in the next couple of days, maybe not tomorrow, but in the next couple of days. There's one that I don't want to include, but I am anyway because it's on there. And this is kind of like a, SPAC, finance blank check, which trades with the, Bitcoin. It's a Bitcoin. These folks put it together, and I'm just going to move on. Chewy, this is one that I like a lot because I like pets, I like animals, and I like this stock as it surfs its 5 EMA. And you can see why this is on our relative strength list. Chewy is kicking butt. CRDO, I mentioned this one earlier. This one's on there, and it's going to definitely stay. It closed at 9.8% above the 5. So that's getting, pretty heated when you're that far above the 5, which makes it how far above? Yeah, 22% above the 21. So yeah. Eh. Carvana, another one that I like a lot. In this day and age, people just press a button and the car shows up at the door. We like that convenience factor. But, just technically, it's trading on its 5 and just being supported at that 5. So you ride that trend till it bends at the end, and it's been doing it since they've been liberated, right? Ever since we've been liberated, this thing's been riding the 5. So very consistent pattern there for Carvana. Same with HWM, Helmet. Yeah, pulled back today. How many times has it pulled back since we got liberated? Not often. 2 days here in May, another 2 days in May, and then here's 2 days in May, and now the one day in June. So maybe if we can get a little more pullback here, we can pull the trigger on Helmet. I don't own it, but you can see it's one of the relative strength leaders. Same with KTOS. Another aerospace and defense stock. This is a top 10 group, and this one's just riding the 5s to higher prices. There's nothing to do here if you own it. Just let it go. All right. What else do we have? Oh boy. Cloudflare. I like this one a lot. I should own it. I don't. But it had this little flat base. Remember when the Nasdaq went down 3 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks ago? Yeah, 3 weeks ago. And this one was up 0.5% while the Nasdaq was down. Then last week the Nasdaq rallied 2.5%. This was up 5%, and now here we go. It's up 4% as the Nasdaq is up. Did I give you the Nasdaq for this week? Yeah, it's up 1.5%. I did tell you that. All right. Let's go back to Cloudflare. Because you're thinking, man, how do I buy this thing? It's got this nice cup-shaped pattern. Needs a handle, right? Needs to pull back and form a handle, but it might not. We're seeing a lot of stocks just blow right through that standard buy point. As long as it's surfing that 5, that 5 is your guide. And so when it pulls back, like it did here, that's when you pull the trigger, and that's giving you the opportunity to get in. Netflix was the first one to break out after its earnings report, and it's just been surfing the 5 ever since. Just flat today. People get excited. The Nasdaq's up. What would I say? 0.8%, and this is down. It's not down. It's flat, and stocks do this. Leading stocks do this. They're not just going to go up every day, and when they pull back to the 5, that's your opportunity. That's pretty much all you're going to get. Palantir had a nice little move in the afternoon today. I was watching this one. It was kind of doing nothing all day, and then all of a sudden, bloop, made a new high, 135.28, sold off into the close. Um, but you could see here, higher lows, higher highs, for the last 4 sessions here. So Palantir looks like it wants higher prices. Another one, the R's, Roblox, and I show this one every day. just surfing the five. This one was flat on the session today, allowing that five to catch up. And then rubric might pull back tomorrow, maybe. I don't know. I was thinking it should pull back ahead of earnings. Definitely hit 100 and then right there and then kind of pulled back a little bit. So that should act as resistance. They're going to report Thursday after the close. So I don't expect it to just ramp through. I expect a little bit of selling. Even with a strong print, I expect a little bit of selling after a move like that. And that'll give some new folks a shot to get in. SEC, retail internet, Singapore base, just kind of forming this little ledge, pulling back to the five, now trying to move higher. Up 3.3% this week. These are little sleepers. Let's go back to the weekly here. Yeah, you can see that just sideways action here. And then, so let's see it take out the 169.28. This is like 4 weeks, a little flat base type action. Needs more time for official flat base, which is 5 weeks. But in a fast-moving market, it might not want to do that. Spotify, this one just grinding higher, and as long as it stays, 1.1% above the five, it's going to be on our relative strength list. It meets all the criteria above the 21, the 50, the 200. It's got the big volume, just a freight train. This is a slower moving freight train. Yeah, but it's still, I mean, if you just look at the weekly, it's like, yeah, that's a freight train, folks. Just higher and higher and higher, just chugging along up that hill. Definitely a model book stock for Spotify. Urban, these guys gapped higher and then it breached the low of 70.02, a couple of days here, it went down to 69, but this thing's still consolidating and it closed today nearly 1% above the five, so it's doing nothing wrong. Just going flat, digesting gains, which we're massive. Those are massive gains. VST I mentioned earlier, this one is on our, and it's going to stay on our relative strength list. And the last one is Zscaler. This one is, yeah, it's just hot. I mean, ever since it reported earnings here on Friday, ramped nearly 10%. Yesterday, 6%. Today, another strong move. But tomorrow, maybe we get a pullback. It's 5.7% above that, rising 5 EMA. It's been going up. Man, look at that. $11, $8. So, yeah, so tomorrow it's probably going to be around, I don't know, 290. And so we'll see if it pulls back to the five and finds support. It's moving as a result of, well, I don't want to say it because I have to honor the great Steve Jobs and say one more thing. And that is stay hungry, stay foolish, stay humble. And the one more thing is earnings tonight, CrowdStrike. I wouldn't say spit the bit, but they, with a stock, this is a $121 billion stock, and they have what call it less than 5 billion in sales. So it's trading more than 20 times sales. So you got to execute pretty flawlessly. And I know there's a lot of future growth here. I mean, if this was a drug stock, it'd be trading about $50, but it's not a drug stock. So it's just pulling back to this old buy point here of 455. That's where it's at after hours. We'll see what happens tomorrow. If it pulls back to that 21 and finds support, we're just gonna have to wait and see. It's price discovery tomorrow. Yeah, the 21 is 448 today. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see it pull back there. The earnings were fine. It's just the forward guidance was a little light. And when you're priced to perfection, I think this thing was just going to sell off regardless. Same with Rubric, kind of whatever they say. There's just going to be sellers out there after, 298 to 488. Yeah, there's going to be some profit takers. That stands to reason. All right. I will have more information on the CrowdStrike earnings report tomorrow morning. I didn't really look at it that closely. HPE, man, I heard on Bloomberg they were saying something about this stock. I forget what. But anyway, a nice reaction to their earnings. I don't know. I listen to too much stuff, I guess. GWRE, I believe they do the underwriting billing software for the insurance industry. Okay, Guidewire. Nice double bottom base pattern. It looks like I might want to break out of here tomorrow. 10% move after hours, 238. So definitely one to watch for tomorrow. And then old Dustin Moscovitz's old company. I believe he parted ways with this company. I'm not sure. Anyway, down after hours. He got out. I guess he got tired of putting all his money into this company. 4.5 billion market cap. And yeah, he was really putting a lot of money into it during the let me go to the monthly here. Yeah, during this bear market, all the way down, week after week, just buying, buying, buying all the way down. And so he probably figured out that's probably not a good use of his money, and he stopped doing that. All right, and I do believe we have DLTR in the morning. Yeah, June 4th. So we'll have that. We'll have the earnings reports from tonight and tomorrow on the morning report. I like the market. I like the way the Nasdaq is moving. I've just showed you a ton of leading stocks that are making new highs. So that's kind of the pond that I want to fish in. Stuff that looks like this. I would rather have something that looks like this than something that try to fight this Lululemon or Nike retail buzzkill with some of these stocks that are. Or maybe I should go to the solar stocks that have been hammered. Yeah, just crushed. So anyway, yeah, it's a stock picker's market. You got to be in the leading stocks, and that's why I don't even look at these other names. That's why I couldn't find them for you. I just look at the leaders, and that'll tell you the health of the market. I just showed you, I don't know, 25 of them. And so that's a story I'm sticking to it. I did drop a bomb this morning. I had OKLO on the ready list and it was not ready. So maybe tomorrow, maybe later this week. But that happens, and especially with a billion-dollar secondary offering. But I wouldn't give up on this. I'd still watch this closely because it has the ability to move rapidly. Anyway, that's it. Thank you for watching at mcstockcharts.com. We never give up.